A peaceful beach vacation turns into a public nightmare when a black father is handcuffed in front of his family. A white officer acts on a false suspicion, triggering humiliation and chaos. But one silent gesture from the father shifts the tone. Huldan hints at a much bigger truth. Get on your knees now. We got a report about a stolen wallet and you match the description. The officer's voice sliced through the salty air, loud enough to stop beach balls mid-flight and freeze. Tourists mid-step. Children holding melting popsicles turned to stare. Sunbathers lowered their shades. The whole beach had gone still, except for the man in the center of it all. A black father in a loose white linen shirt, khaki shorts and bare feet, standing. Calmly next to a red cooler and two folding chairs, he didn't move. His wife did. "Excuse me?" she said, stepping in front of her husband. "That's my husband. We're on vacation. With our kids." The cop ignored her. His mirrored sunglasses reflected the man's face. Calm, still, unreadable. People gathered. Phones came out. Someone whispered, "Not again." Another, "They're just trying to enjoy their day." The man still hadn't spoken. The cop's partner, a younger officer, shifted uneasily, glancing at the kids. Two of them, a boy and a girl, maybe 8 and 10, holding frozen lemonades and watching their father with wide, silent eyes. The lead. Cop snapped the handcuffs open with a sharp click. "Turn around. Hands behind your back. You can explain downtown." The man slowly complied. Not because he agreed, not because he was afraid, but because he knew how the game was played. His shirt sleeves fluttered in the breeze as the cuffs tightened around his wrists. His son dropped his lemonade. "Daddy?" The boy whispered. No answer, just the crunch of sand, as the cop pulled the man back like some trophy he'd claimed. The woman followed close, her voice rising now. "You're making a mistake. He's not who you think he is." "Ma'am, step." "Becky, this is a violation. You can't." "I said step back." The girl cried now. The crowd thickened. A lifeguard climbed down from his perch, watching. A teenager caught everything on his phone. And in that chaos, something small but unforgettable happened. As the man passed his cooler, handcuffed and silent, he subtly dipped one hand down and flipped it open with his foot. Out slid a shiny black case. It hit the sand with a thud. The younger. The cop picked it up, opened it instinctively, and froze. His face went pale. The lead cop didn't notice. "What is it?" someone asked. The younger officer swallowed hard. He turned the case around for the crowd to see. A gold badge, government seal, high clearance, embedded ID FBI. Gasps. The woman smiled grimly. The man finally spoke. "You just handcuffed a federal agent in front of his kids, on camera." A wave of silence crashed harder than the ocean behind them, and just before he was turned to face the crowd again, the man added almost gently, "You really should have done your homework." The moment. The badge glinted under the sunlight. The crowd shifted from passive spectators to furious witnesses. "What the hell?" a man shouted. "He's FBI! You just cuffed a Fed!" Someone else chimed in. Dozens of phones stayed pointed at the officers. A woman live-streamed the entire event, her voice shaking with rage. "This is happening. Right now, y'all. A black dad on vacation just got handcuffed in front of his kids, and he's a federal agent." The arresting officer froze, the sound around him warping, every breath suddenly loud and jagged. He turned toward his partner, saw the badge in his hands, saw the fear in his eyes. I didn't know," the lead officer stammered. The dispatcher said, "The woman cut him off. You said he matched the description." "What description?" "Brown skin, sandals, a family man on a beach?" The husband still hadn't moved. His wrists remained bound, even as the truth shimmered like heat waves in the air. "Remove the cuffs," the woman said, her voice now firm, unshaken. "Now," the officer hesitated. "I said, remove them." Click. The cuffs came off. The man rubbed his wrists briefly, as if brushing off sand. His expression didn't change. He didn't explode. He didn't yell. He simply stepped back toward his kids and knelt beside them. He held their hands in silence. The boy leaned into his chest. The girl clutched his shirt. People clapped, not out of celebration, but defiance. Behind the crowd, beach security arrived, waving their arms. "Everyone, please move along. Nothing to see here." But there was. A woman in a wide straw hat walked up to the family and quietly handed the father a business card. "Civil rights attorney," she whispered. "Don't let this slide." The officer who cuffed him now looked desperate, sweating, shaking. He spoke low, almost to himself. "This is bad. This is really bad." "You think?" his partner said. Under his breath, the man, Agent Marcus Trenton, finally stood. He dusted off his palms, looked the officer dead in the eyes and said, "I'm not done with you, not even close." Then he turned his back on them. The kids followed him to the umbrella. His wife handed him a towel, though his body was dry. "I told you," she murmured. "I told you they wouldn't see you first, just your skin." Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he looked out at the waves and let the salt air wash over him. The vacation was over. That part of the story was done. But something else had just begun, and cameras were still rolling. By nightfall, the video had hit 1 million views. It opened with the cop's voice, "Get on your knees, now." And it ended with the glint of a badge and the collective gasp of a crowd. On TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and X, the story spread like a bruise, fast, spreading under the surface, impossible to ignore. The comments were relentless. Truth Watcher Niate. "He's an FBI agent. They did that to him. Imagine the rest of us." Beach Mom 28. "My daughter saw this live. She's still crying. That boy looked her age." Handcuffed dad, vacation, while black. Justice for Trenton by morning. Major networks had picked it up. Federal agent falsely detained on Florida beach, CNN's banner read. Fox framed it differently. Confusion on the coast. Officer followed protocol. A press release followed from the Clearwater Police Department. The officers were responding to a theft report and acted within the scope of their duties. "We regret the inconvenience caused to Agent Marcus Trenton and are reviewing procedures." Inconvenience? His wife scoffed as she read the statement aloud in their hotel room. They call humiliation an inconvenience now. Marcus sat in silence, sipping black coffee, staring at the muted TV. He hadn't said a word publicly. Not yet. He hadn't tweeted, hadn't posted, hadn't given a single interview. Reporters had swarmed the hotel, leaving business cards under. "Doors," calling the front desk. "Mr. Trenton, just a quote, one quote." But Marcus Trenton was waiting, watching. The cop in the video, Officer Blake Cooper, had already been doxxed. Social media had dragged out every racist meme he'd liked, every questionable post, every bodycam moment swept under the rug. Activists dug deeper. Lawsuits from prior stops resurfaced. A pattern emerged, but Marcus still hadn't spoken until 10:42 a.m. That's when a quiet tweet went live from his personal account, an account with fewer than 300 followers before. "This week, Agent Trenton, you handcuffed me in front of my children. You stripped my dignity and thought I'd stay silent. I don't want revenge, I want reform, and I'm just getting started." It blew up. Retweets, headlines, news tickers, podcasters debated it, lawyers analyzed it. And just like that, Marcus Trenton was no longer a victim. He was a voice, a symbol, a storm. Blake Cooper hadn't slept. He sat on the edge of his couch, staring blankly at the TV as his own face flashed on the screen over and over again. Headlines ran in all caps. "Officer Cooper cuffs black FBI agent, suspension imminent." The clip looped endlessly. Him shouting commands, slapping cuffs, pulling a calm man through the sand like a captured criminal. Then the badge reveal. Then the line that now haunted him. "You just handcuffed a federal agent." He tried to tell himself he was just doing his job, following dispatch orders. But the pit in his stomach wouldn't stop growing. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing either. Death threats, hate messages, doxing, and then came the call from internal affairs. Officer Cooper, report to HQ by 9. You're being placed on administrative leave pending review. He didn't even ask why. He knew. His wife paced the living room. You're not a racist, Blake. You've worked with black officers for years. He rubbed his face, voice low. Doesn't matter anymore. All they see is what's on that video. His wife turned up the volume. On screen, footage from 3 years ago. Cooper yelling at a young Latino teen during a traffic stop. No charges filed, no apology given. Looks like this isn't the first time, the anchor said. A troubling pattern is emerging. Blake's stomach dropped. Another clip, another face. Another moment he thought was forgotten. Outside a local news van parked across the street, a man with a mic stood by a tree, rehearsing a segment. He shut the blinds. Then came the text from his partner, Officer Rick. They're cutting you loose. Hey, bro, and Jay just pulled all our body cams. I didn't say anything, but this is bad. Blake stared at the words. His hands trembled. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was a clip of Marcus Trenton's tweet, read aloud on Good Morning America. The anchor's voice was calm, measured. I don't want revenge, I want reform. And I'm just getting started. Blake muttered, he's gonna bury me. And somewhere deep inside, he knew he deserved it. The studio lights were hot, but Marcus Trenton didn't sweat. He sat on the leather interview chair, perfectly upright in a navy blue suit, hands resting calmly in his lap. Across from him sat anchor Monica Rivera, a seasoned journalist known for her composure, but even she looked slightly nervous today. The intro music faded. Red light on air. Good evening, America, Monica began. Tonight, we're speaking with the man at the center of a story that has shaken the nation, FBI agent Marcus Trenton, who was handcuffed on a Florida beach in front of his children. Mr. Trenton, thank you for being here. Marcus gave a small nod. Thank you for having me. The screen split into a side-by-side. Monica on the left, Marcus on the right, and the infamous beach footage looping silently between them. Monica leaned forward. Let's go back to that moment. You were on vacation, with your family, and suddenly you're being handcuffed. What went through your mind? Marcus looked straight into the camera, not angry, not broken, just clear. I've trained for high-risk arrests, raids, counterintelligence operations, but nothing prepared me for the moment my son saw me in handcuffs, crying, not because I was a suspect, but because I looked like one. The studio went still. Were you surprised? Monica asked. No, Marcus replied. That's the tragedy. I wasn't. He continued, his voice calm and cutting like a scalpel. You see, in our country, your job doesn't protect you. Your education doesn't protect you. Your badge doesn't protect you. Your skin decides your risk factor. I wasn't a threat. I was a father, a husband, a federal agent. But to that officer, I was a problem to neutralize. Monica blinked slowly, letting the words hang. And your children? She asked. Marcus looked down for a moment, then back up. They asked me that night if I was going to jail. My daughter asked if people like us are supposed to just stay quiet when we're treated bad. I told her, no. That silence is how injustice survives. The feed cut to live audience reactions online. Comments flooded the network's stream. Justice for all. This man's restraint is legendary. I'd be suing the city by now. Law enforce. This. He's not just calling out a cop, he's calling out a culture. Back in the studio, Monica asked gently, you tweeted that you don't want revenge. You want reform. What does that look like to you? Marcus didn't hesitate. It starts with accountability, not just for individuals, but for systems. I want better training, better hiring, better oversight. I want officers who see black fathers as fathers, not suspects. I want consequences for abuse, not paid vacations. He leaned forward now, every word hitting like a strike. If they can do that to me, someone with a badge, what do you think is happening to people without one? Monica paused. Her eyes were glassy. "Mr. Trenton," she said, "if you could speak directly to the officer who cuffed you, what would you say?" Marcus looked at the camera again, and he spoke not with rage but with power. "You didn't just arrest a man that day. You exposed a system, and I intend to fix it, whether you like it or not." The screen faded to black, and the world kept watching. Commissioner Daniel Groves stood at the head of the conference table, face flushed, voice clipped. "We need to get ahead of this now." Around him sat a dozen top officials, sweating under the glare of fluorescent lights and national attention. Phones buzzed non-stop, email alerts pinged, and every single screen in the room showed the same thing: Marcus Trenton, live, calm, unshakable. "You saw the numbers," said Deputy Chief Herrera, tapping the tablet in front of her. "Over 5 million views in 12 hours. He's trending. In 46 countries. Celebrities are retweeting him. Civil rights groups are organizing. He's got lawyers crawling all over this already." "Then what the hell do you want me to do?" Groves snapped. "We followed protocol. Cooper responded to a theft call." "Did he?" Herrera interrupted. "Because dispatch has no audio of that report. No wallet reported stolen. No matching description ever went out." The room went silent. Groves looked like he'd swallowed a lit match. Someone else slid a folder across the table. "That's Cooper's complaint history. 3 excessive force reports in the last 18 months. 2 verbal warnings, 1 dismissed lawsuit." "Which never made it to trial," Groves muttered. "Doesn't matter now. It's all resurfacing." Another screen flashed with a local news headline: "Clearwater PD under fire. Systemic pattern or isolated incident." Groves grabbed his coffee and downed it like a shot. "Fine. You want a solution. We issue a public statement, say it was a misunderstanding. Cooper gets suspension with pay while we review the footage. Then we move on." "No one's buying that," Herrera said. "Not this time." "Then what do you suggest?" "Accountability. Actual accountability. Apologize. Fire Cooper. And make real policy changes." Groves looked at her like she'd grown another head. "You want me to sacrifice one of my own?" "No. I want you to stop protecting the cancer eating this department alive." Before Groves could respond, the department's PR chief stepped in. "We've already drafted a preliminary statement, something that looks like an apology without admitting. Legal liability." He passed out printed sheets. The message was sterile, polished, completely void of meaning. "We regret the distress caused to Agent Marcus Trenton and his family during their recent visit to Clearwater Beach. We are reviewing our training protocols and reaffirm our commitment to unbiased policing." Herrera read it and dropped it on the table. "This isn't an apology. It's a cover-up." But by noon, the statement was released anyway, and within the hour, it was ripped apart online. Woke journalist: "This isn't accountability. This is PR lotion on a bullet wound." Justice moms: "Where's the actual apology? Where's the firing? Where's the reform?" Even major networks refused to back off. By evening, footage emerged of another of Cooper's stops, this time shouting at a teen with autism. The backlash grew louder. Meanwhile, Marcus Trenton hadn't said a word since his interview, but he didn't need to. The silence was louder than any press release. And back at police headquarters, Groves finally muttered what everyone was thinking. "We're losing control of the narrative." Herrera leaned back, arms crossed. "No," she said, "we already lost it. Now we just have to decide what side of history we want to land on." Blake Cooper stared at the screen in disbelief, his face again, his name again, this time not just for the beach incident, but for everything he thought he'd buried. The headline on the investigative report read, "A Pattern of Power. Officer. Cooper's History of Racially Charged Encounters." The segment played on national television. A reporter's voice narrated over body cam clips, court documents, and grainy dashcam footage. In 2019, Cooper stopped a black teenager walking home from basketball practice. No probable cause, no charges filed. The boy was held for 45 minutes. In 2020, Cooper was caught on audio telling a Latino driver to go back where you came from during a traffic stop. In 2022, Cooper forcibly detained a deaf black man for non-compliance, despite clear attempts to sign for help. Each clip was worse than the last, and with each name mentioned, victims came forward online, one by one. Nina J.W. writes, "That was my cousin. Blake Cooper slammed him against our fence for existing in his hoodie." Darnell, 2018, summer. "I said, 'Yes, sir,' and still got pushed." Same guy, same look in his eye. Justice 4J. "He pulled my dad over in front of our church, called it a random stop. I was 9, I never forgot it." At first, Cooper told himself they were exaggerating, twisting things. He tried to convince himself he wasn't the villain. But the internet didn't care about his justifications. They had receipts, footage, statements, and now the police union is backing away too. His phone buzzed, a message from the union rep. "We can't defend this publicly anymore. You're on. Your own until we get clarity." Clarity? Cooper almost laughed. His world was crumbling, and still. He thought of Marcus Trenton's face, that quiet, unreadable face, the calm that had unnerved him more than any yelling could, because Marcus hadn't needed to raise his voice. The world had done it for him. Cooper's wife sat across the room, silent. Their home was dark except for the flickering light of the TV. "When did it start?" she asked suddenly. He looked at her, confused. "When did you start thinking every black man was a threat?" I didn't. Don't lie. To me, Blake." He didn't answer, because he didn't know. Somewhere along the way, the line had blurred. Between suspicion and assumption, between caution and bias, between authority and abuse. And now, that line had come back like a whip. His badge lay on the kitchen counter. Heavy. Useless. He picked it up. And for the first time in his career, he didn't feel proud. He felt exposed. The hotel balcony overlooked the Gulf of Mexico, calm waves crashing beneath an orange-pink sunset. But Marcus Trenton's mind was far from peaceful. He held his phone in one hand and a stiff bourbon in the other. His mentions were still blowing up. Thousands of messages every hour. Most were supportive. Some were demanding. A few were warning shots. Woke firestorm. "We stand with you, Agent Trenton, but don't sell out. This isn't about one cop. This is about the system. BLK justice now. You're a symbol now. Don't let them buy your silence with fake apologies. Go all in." Fedwatch. Trenton better tread lightly. This kind of spotlight isn't good for the Bureau's image. That last one came with a chill. It wasn't just some troll account. It was a subtle but unmistakable message from inside the system. A knock came at the suite door. His wife, Selena, opened it. Special Agent Director Raymond Cass stepped inside, wearing a quiet expression and a sharp gray suit. His presence changed the air. "Marcus," he said with a nod. "Got a minute?" Marcus didn't move from the balcony. "If you're here to ask me to stop talking, you're wasting the trip." Cass exhaled slowly and joined him outside. "It's not that simple." "Sure it is," Marcus said. "They handcuffed me in front of my children. I stayed quiet for 24 hours. I gave the Bureau a chance to lead with integrity. Instead, I got silence." Cass rubbed his jaw, glancing at the sunset. "You're right. The optics are horrible. But now the Bureau's being dragged into it. And we're federal, not local. You know how delicate this gets when politics step in." Marcus turned to face him fully. "So I should be delicate? Is that it?" "No, I'm saying we need strategy. You have everyone's attention, but if you push too hard, too fast, you give them an excuse to dismiss you, paint you as emotional, as radical." Marcus took a slow sip of his drink. "Let them try," he said. "You saw the video? You saw their statement? You think this ends with me giving a polite speech and walking away?" "No," Cass said, "but it could end with you losing your job, your clearance, your ability to make any change from the inside. Selina stepped in, her voice firm. Then maybe it's time change comes from the outside. Both men looked at her. She wasn't angry. She was focused. Marcus didn't choose this spotlight, she continued, but now that it's here, maybe the question isn't how much he risks. Maybe it's what he's willing to fight for. Cass nodded. Just be smart. That's all I'm saying. Marcus turned back to the ocean. He thought of his kids, of the cuffs, of the boy he used to be, proud to wear a badge, proud to serve justice. Now, that badge felt like a mask, but he wasn't wearing it anymore. He was becoming something else. It started with a flyer. A march for dignity, Clearwater Beach, 10 a.m. Bring your voice. Wear white. Walk for change. The image was simple. Marcus kneeling on the sand, flanked by his children, with the handcuffs edited into a broken chain. It spread like wildfire across the internet. By the morning of the march, thousands had arrived. The same beach that once echoed with commands and humiliation was now packed with voices, signs, chants, and white-clad bodies shoulder to shoulder. Reporters circled like seagulls, their cameras catching every step. Drones flew overhead. Police lined the boardwalk but kept their distance. Marcus stood at the edge of the sand in a white collared shirt, rolled sleeves, dark slacks and sunglasses. Selina was beside him. Their children held small cardboard signs. Dignity is not a threat. I am more than a suspicion. Selina looked at him. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to. But Marcus nodded. He stepped up to the makeshift podium, a wooden lifeguard tower repurposed for truth. Microphones from every major network pointed at him. He didn't use a script. He didn't need one. My name is Marcus Trenton, he began, voice steady. I am a husband, a father, a federal agent, and last week I was handcuffed without cause in front of my family because of what I look like. The crowd was silent. I'm not here today for revenge. I'm here because dignity should not be conditional, rights should not be negotiable, and skin should not be a suspect. A cheer rose, sharp, unified. I spent years believing that if I worked hard, served this country, wore the badge, I'd be protected from this. But now I see that even the badge bends under the weight of bias. He looked out at the people. Young, old, black, white, brown, all marching for the same thing. This march isn't about me, he said. It's about every child who watched their parents be humiliated. Every person was told to calm down when they were just trying to exist. Every life is affected by a system that punishes identity instead of crime. Applause exploded. Thunderous, endless, Marcus raised one hand. I won't stop speaking. I won't stop marching. And I won't stop fighting until no one fears the law more than they trust it. The roar of the crowd became a wave of power. Chants began. Who do you protect? Who do you serve? Signs lifted higher. Media vans reported live. The air was electric with unity. Marcus stepped down from the podium and began walking, slowly, solemnly, leading the line of thousands through the beach walk, past the station, past the cameras, past the place where it all began. Every footstep said the same thing. We saw what you did. We will not forget. And we're not backing down. The room smelled of leather, oak, and anxiety. Inside a private government facility in D.C., a closed-door meeting was already underway. 12 men and women sat around a polished conference table. Polished, like everything in the room, except the narrative outside. A massive screen showed live drone footage of Clearwater Beach. Tens of thousands marching in peace. News tickers below blared, Federal agent becomes symbol of justice. Trenton movement gaining ground. White House silent so far. A tall man in a dark blue suit stood at the head of the table, flipping through a thick folder. Marcus. Trenton is becoming a problem, said National Security Liaison Carl Dreisen. A symbol that wasn't assigned, wasn't approved, and now can't be controlled. No laws broken, replied Congresswoman Lynn Devers. No calls for violence, just a man speaking the truth. Why does that scare you so much? It's Not the truth that scares us, Dryson replied coldly. It's what truth can start. The others exchanged glances. Let's be honest, said a white-haired senator from the South. He's dangerous, not because he lied, but because he didn't. Someone from Homeland added, he's stirring up unrest. Our field offices are already tracking demonstrations forming in 10 other cities. You let this grow, and it becomes a national reckoning. And if it should be? Devers asked sharply. The room fell still. A lower-level advisor cleared his throat. We have options. Offer him a position, maybe on a reform committee. Give him a fancy title. Fold him into the system. Control the message. That man's not looking to be co-opted, Devers said. He's looking to rebuild, and that makes people nervous. Across the room, someone muttered, we could pull his clearance. We could bury him in process. We could frame him as unstable. But Devers slammed her folder shut. No, that'll backfire. He's too calm, too clean. If you try to smear him, you turn him into a martyr. And if you silence him, you prove his point. Another advisor said, he's not asking for power. He's demanding change, and that's harder to fight. Carl Dryson exhaled deeply. Then we watch, he said. We wait. Let the storm run its course. Public attention always moves on eventually. But he was wrong, because outside that airtight room, Marcus wasn't slowing down. He was speaking at universities, sitting on panels, testifying at hearings. And every word, calm, direct, unshakable, chipped at the foundation of something. Bigger than any one man, the streets weren't emptying, they were multiplying, and behind closed doors, power was starting to sweat. The call came just after dawn. Marcus was seated on the back porch of his family home in Virginia, sipping coffee, as birds stirred in the trees. Selena sat across from him, scrolling through the latest headlines. His phone vibrated once, then stilled. Unknown number. DC code, he answered. A polished voice, precise and impersonal, came through the line. Agent Trenton, this is Thomas Keller, Chief of Staff to the President of the United States. Are you available to speak? Marcus didn't flinch. I'm listening. First, let me say, we've been following the events surrounding your case closely. The President extends his respect and appreciation for your measured, thoughtful leadership during this time of national reflection. Marcus said nothing. We believe your experience and voice are valuable, which is why I'm calling to offer you a seat at the table. What table? Marcus asked flatly. The White House Task Force on Law Enforcement and Equity. We'd like to bring you in as an advisor. You'd help shape national reform policy, meet directly with lawmakers, represent the face of change from within. Selena paused mid-scroll and looked up. Marcus held up one finger, staying quiet. Keller continued, this could be your chance to implement real structural improvements, not just rhetoric. Change takes time, and we need credible, calm leaders to guide it. And what do you need in return? Marcus asked. Just your cooperation, your discretion. We'd appreciate if future public comments were strategically measured. No direct calls for protest, no inflammatory remarks. Help us move forward, together. Marcus looked out over his backyard. His kids were still asleep upstairs. The birds chirped like the world hadn't changed, but it had. He took a deep breath. Mr. Keller, he said slowly, I don't need a seat at your table if I have to leave my spine at the door. Keller hesitated. I'm not interested in becoming the government's apology tour, Marcus continued. If the president wants real reform, I'll gladly help, but I won't soften the truth for press optics, and I won't trade power for silence. There was a pause on the other end, then a cool reply. I'll relay your conditions to the president. I'm not offering conditions, Marcus said. I'm offering clarity. You asked for my cooperation. Now I'm asking for yours. He ended the call. Selena raised an eyebrow. So that's a no? Marcus smiled faintly. That's a not like that. She leaned back, arms crossed. They're scared. They should be, he said, because while they were offering chairs, he was building the table. The apartment was dark, curtains pulled tight against the morning sun. Blake Cooper hadn't left in days. The badge was gone. The uniform, folded neatly in the closet, felt more like a lie than a symbol of duty. Every time he turned on the news, his name came up, not as a hero, not as a protector, as a warning. The walls felt smaller every hour. His phone was silent now. No union calls, no backup from his department. Even his neighbors avoided him in the hallway. His own son hadn't answered his texts, and the guilt, it sat on his chest like wet concrete. He watched the latest protest from Clearwater Beach on his cracked laptop screen. Marcus Trenton at the podium, speaking with clarity, power, restraint. Blake turned down the volume. I never even asked his name, he whispered to himself. He remembered the moment clearly now, the way Marcus had stood silent, calm, unafraid. Blake had mistaken it for defiance, but now he understood. It was dignity, and he'd crushed it in front of that man's children. He got up, walked to the bathroom mirror. His face looked older, thinner, tired. This isn't who I was supposed to be, he said, but the mirror didn't argue. That afternoon he sat down at his kitchen table and opened his laptop. He logged into a blank social media account, one. His department had always warned him not to use for personal posts. He hit record. The screen lit up. His face looked haunted. He cleared his throat. My name is Blake Cooper. I was the officer who handcuffed Agent Marcus Trenton on Clearwater Beach. What I did was wrong. And I want to say that not because I've been told to, not because I've been sued, but because I finally see it, he paused. I didn't treat him like a man. I treated him like a profile, a threat. I made assumptions based on the color of his skin, and I did it while wearing a badge that was supposed to protect people. He leaned closer. I saw his kids. I saw his wife. I still did it. His voice cracked slightly. I've lost my badge. I've lost the public's trust. But more than that, I lost the person I thought I was. And if there's any chance at redemption, it starts with this. He stopped the recording, sat still, then hit upload. Within 20 minutes, the clip was everywhere. Some people called it a long overdue reckoning. Others called it a weak PR stunt. Some forgave, others didn't. But it didn't matter, because for the first time, Blake Cooper had stopped hiding behind silence. And for the first time, Marcus Trenton watched the apology and didn't look away. He simply whispered to himself, accountability. One brick at a time. The breeze off Clearwater Beach smelled different now. It still carried the briny salt of the sea, the hum of distant laughter, the swooping call of gulls overhead. But for Marcus Trenton, it wasn't just a vacation, destination anymore. It was sacred ground. He stood barefoot in the sand, feeling its coolness work its way between his toes. His gaze was steady on the shoreline, watching the waves break in slow rhythm against the place where his life had changed forever. Not just his life, the country's. The scene was peaceful, almost surreal. Behind him, his children were flying, bright-colored kites that danced like flames against a pale blue sky. Selena stood beside him, hand nestled in his. She wore a white sundress, her curls tucked into a sun hat, eyes hidden behind gold-rimmed sunglasses that sparkled in the sun. There were people nearby, not a crowd, but a presence. Quiet, respectful, locals who had seen it all, strangers who had flown across states just to stand in solidarity. Reporters stood at a distance, lenses down, as if afraid to disturb the calm. There were no chants today. No signs, just nods of reverence, smiles of quiet acknowledgement. The world was watching again, but this time, not for spectacle, for remembrance. Marcus looked out across the beach and saw it as if for the first time. A year ago, this sand had held his knees. His wrists had been bound behind his back. His children had watched in horror. His dignity had been mistaken for defiance. and he had stood there, silent, letting the weight of every injustice before him echo in the way he did not resist. And now, he was standing taller than he ever had before. "Feels like another lifetime," Selina murmured, breaking the silence. Marcus nodded. "Sometimes I wonder if it really happened. Then I see that plaque over there, and I remember." Selina followed his gaze. At the edge of the boardwalk, beneath a modest canopy of white fabric, a new bronze plaque had been installed by the Clearwater City Council. It was simple, elegant, and deeply symbolic. "In honor of dignity reclaimed and justice demanded, Marcus Trenton, federal agent, father, citizen." He reminded us that silence is not peace, and calm is not weakness. This beach is now a sanctuary for truth, dedicated to those who march not with rage, but with purpose. People took turns approaching it, some placing flowers at its base. Others touched it gently, as if grounding themselves in something deeper than history, something personal. Marcus watched a mother kneel beside the plaque, whispering something to her teenage son before wrapping an arm around him. The boy wore a hoodie that read, "I am not a threat." His eyes never left Marcus. A man approached hesitantly, white, mid-60s, in a faded sheriff's hat. "Agent Trenton," he said quietly. Marcus turned. "Yes?" "I came to apologize. I wasn't part of it. But I was part of the silence. I watched that video and realized how many times I'd looked away in my own town. You didn't just wake up the system. You woke up people like me." Marcus extended his hand. The man shook it firmly and with a solemn nod walked away. Moments later, a group of high schoolers came forward, each holding sketchbooks and DSLR cameras. "Excuse me, Agent Trenton," said a soft-spoken girl with braids. "We're from a civil rights art class in Atlanta. We came to create a memorial series about this place. About you. Is it okay if we include your image?" Marcus smiled. "Only if you include the kids," he said, pointing toward his own, who were now laughing in the shallows. "They're the reason this started, and the reason it won't stop." The girl nodded. "We will." A few hours later, under the golden wash of late afternoon light, the official ceremony began. No podium, no police escorts, just a semicircle of folding chairs in the sand, a few elected officials, and the city's mayor, a black woman named Deja Collins, newly elected and proudly unapologetic. "We gather here today," she said, "not just to mark the passing of time, but to recognize the moment when silence was broken and justice began to move. Marcus Trenton didn't just endure, he acted, and because of him—" She turned, gesturing to a folded cloth beside the plaque. "Because of him and all of you who marched beside him, we're not the same city we used to be." The cloth was pulled down. A sculpture was revealed, abstract, powerful. A man kneeling, but not in submission, in defiance. His fists were unclenched, palms turned outward, offering peace without surrender. The plaque beneath read, "To kneel without fear, to speak without apology, to rise without hate." Applause swept the beach like a wave, not thunderous, but resonant, like a heartbeat. Marcus stood there, eyes wet but unblinking. He did not give a speech. He simply stepped forward, touched the base of the sculpture, and whispered something no mic could catch. Then he turned back toward his family, scooped his daughter into his arms, and walked into the sea. The cool water wrapped around his ankles, then knees, then waist. His son joined him. Then Selina. The family laughed as they swam, not because the world was healed, but because they had survived long enough to help start the healing. Later, as the sun dipped into the ocean, a boy approached Marcus with a notepad. "Are you Agent Trenton?" "I am," Marcus said, kneeling. "I'm doing a school report. My teacher said you changed the law." Marcus chuckled. "I didn't do it alone. But you started it, right?" Marcus looked out at the waves again. For a moment he saw that day flash in his mind. The cuffs, the silence, the badge case in the sand. "Yes," he said softly. "I guess I did." The boy smiled and ran off, and Marcus stood again, no longer the man who had knelt in defeat, but the man who now stood for millions. It was late, the kind of late where the sky forgets what color it's supposed to be, and the streets fall into a hush so complete you can hear your own breath. Marcus sat in his study, the door closed behind him, the world on the other side silent. The air was still, thick with memory. A single lamp cast an amber glow over his desk, illuminating the blank sheet of paper in front of him. The only thing untouched in a year where everything had been disrupted. Selina had gone to bed an hour ago. The kids were already curled up under their blankets, tired from a long day of laughter and reflection at the beach. He had promised them tomorrow would be quiet, peaceful, normal. But tonight, he had something left to do. On the desk sat a sealed envelope, marked with a simple label, "The Final Word." He hadn't written it yet. A national magazine had asked him to close the year with a letter. But this wasn't going to be another polished media piece. Not a soundbite, not a press statement, no handlers, no scripts, just Marcus. He leaned forward, cracked his knuckles, and let the silence settle in like an old friend. Then he picked up his pen and began. "I never set out to be a symbol. Wasn't trying to be the face of a movement. I was just trying to protect my family. I was trying to enjoy a beach day. I was trying to teach my son how to build a proper sandcastle. I was trying to show my daughter how to fly a kite. But instead, I ended up showing them how dignity can be mistaken for defiance, how calm can be mistaken for threat, how your worth can still be questioned, even when you've done everything right." He paused, staring at the reflection of the lamp in the dark window. His own face looked older, weathered not by years, but by weight. He continued. "That day on the beach when the cuffs snapped shut, I wasn't thinking about justice or legacy. I was thinking about my children watching me. I was thinking about how they would remember that moment. Would they see their father humiliated, broken, or would they see restraint, control, and unshakable truth? That was the hardest part, holding it in, staying still, not because I was afraid, but because I knew the world needed to see it with nothing they could twist," he wrote slowly, every word feeling like it carried centuries behind it. "I've been called a hero, a leader, a threat, a disruptor. People ask me if I'm proud of what I've done, of the marches, the laws passed, the conversations forced into daylight. And the truth is, I'm not proud, I'm relieved, I'm grateful. But I am not proud that it had to happen this way, because we are still living in a world where suffering is the price of progress, where pain is the lever we have to pull to move hearts, where a black man must be handcuffed in front of his children before society feels uncomfortable enough to change." He shook his head and set the pen down for a moment, rubbing his temples. Then he picked it back up. "I didn't change the world, but I showed it to a mirror. And what you do when the mirror doesn't lie, that's up to you." He looked over at a framed photo of his father on the wall, a Vietnam veteran who had taught him to keep his voice steady even when the ground beneath him shook. "My father once told me that true courage isn't found in shouting louder. It's standing still while the world tries to knock you down and not letting it change who you are." So I stood. I watched the crowd. I felt the cuffs. I stayed calm. Not because I wasn't angry, but because I knew my rage wasn't what the world needed to see. They needed to see what dignity looks like when it's under fire. A breeze whispered through the cracked window. Somewhere outside, a wind chime sang. He smiled faintly and continued. "I want to say this clearly. The movement was never mine. It belongs to the kids who chanted my name even though they've never met me. It belongs to the elders who carried signs in the heat with aching backs and steady hearts. It belongs to the teachers, the barbers, the nurses, the neighbors who refuse to look away anymore, and it belongs to you, reading this. If you are waiting for someone to give you permission to speak up, to take action, to confront injustice, stop waiting. You don't need permission. You are the permission. He underlined that last sentence twice. You are the one your community is waiting for, the one your children are watching, the one your ancestors hoped for. Not because you're perfect, but because you showed up. He looked at the clock. 2:03 a.m. The house was completely still now. He could hear his daughter talking in her sleep down the hall, a soft, wordless mumble that made him smile. He turned back to the letter. I know you're tired. I am too. I know you're angry. I've been angry longer than you know. But our job is not just to protest what's wrong. It's to protect what's possible. So when they ask you why you care, tell them the beach didn't break me. Tell them the cuffs didn't hold me. Tell them the silence didn't stop me. Tell them you remember. And you're not done yet. He ended with one last line, quiet, resolute, final. This wasn't the end of a fight. It was the beginning of a torch being passed. Marcus folded the letter neatly, slid it into the envelope marked the final word, and placed it gently into a wooden lockbox beside his desk. He didn't lock it. He didn't have to. The words were already out in the world. Or they soon would be. And once they were, they'd never be taken back. He turned off the desk lamp, stepped into the hallway, paused by the kids' room, and looked in one last time before walking quietly back to his bedroom. As he slid under the covers beside Selena, she stirred. You finish it? She mumbled, eyes still closed. Yeah, he whispered, I finished it. She reached for his hand under the blanket, and in the silence that followed, as the night breathed slowly around them, Marcus Trenton closed his eyes, not in fear, not in sorrow, but in peace. Because tomorrow, someone else would rise. And this time, they wouldn't rise alone.